Hey, all right, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's Monday. How are we doing? I hope I sound good and I'm coming through. Happy Monday. All right, let me make sure we get on with the show before my computer has a meltdown because it's Monday. So, welcome. We are here every week to share powerful stories and experiences to destigmatize and normalize mental health and disability and trauma. This is a place where we share our mayhem and create opportunities through connection and encourage acceptance. So, we're here off to another week, friends. How's everybody doing? Visual descriptor. Uh, I'm a female Latina with brunette with silver hair, silver streaks. I have olive skin, brown eyes. I'm wearing red lipstick with a big smile on my face as usual. And I'm wearing a forest green, dark green top today. So welcome everyone. Want to make sure I plug in my trigger warning discretion as we always discuss things that can be difficult and maybe a little bit difficult for some individuals. And mature nature like to say that these are our opinions and our experiences, but I appreciate everyone that joins us in the chat. Hi, how are you? How's everybody doing? I'm so excited that we're here. Welcome everyone that's tuning in. I see the chat is like so going fast, so that's exciting. I really want to get to our guest. I'm really excited to have her. We're here for a really good important conversation about National Eating Disorders Awareness Week. It's an annual campaign to educate the public about the realities of eating disorders, and we want to provide hope, support, and visibility to individuals and families that are affected by eating disorders. So that's why we're here, and our guest is wonderful. I can't wait to bring her out. But first, if you're not familiar, please follow me on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you're tuning in from. Make sure you're following me on my other platforms. Really appreciate the support. Thank you to Restream to powering this live. I know I say this every week, and I've got some stuff to share about PodFest and VidFest coming up in May. I'm going to be speaking at it. I got a promo code, Silver Fox Talks. You get 20% off if you use the promo code. So please, if you're coming down to Orlando for PodFest, VidFest in May, get your tickets and use the promo code. All right, let me make sure we're still here. Everybody's good? Everybody's good? Okay, just checking in. We're going to get right to our guest, and then we're going to get to the chat. We're going to say hello to the chat. But I want to introduce Elisabeth, Kristof before we get started. She is the founder of Brain-Based Wellness. It's an online platform. She's an expert and certified and applied neurology practitioner with a focus on fitness and movement. I can't wait to talk about that. Her platform trains the nervous system and the body to resolve old patterns, improve performance, and increase well-being. She's going to share her experiences. We're going to highlight Eating Disorder Awareness Week, and we're going to share this topic that she's familiar with and passionate about. She works with entrepreneurs, athletes, leaders, creatives to improve resilience, manage stress, and regulate emotions through intentional and science-based training, brain training. She's researched and worked with hundreds of clients that have really taught her about healing and change that must occur in both the body and the mind. And I really believe this. So I'm really excited to hear all about this. Let me go ahead and bring her out. Let's see. All right. What's going on? Hi, Elisabeth. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is such an important topic and your experience. I can't wait to hear all about it and, hear your thoughts and your experiences with tonight's topic. So let's say hi to the chat because I know they've been kind of
Hi,
waiting on
guys.
us. But everybody say hi to her. Say what's up. This way, right? Am I no, this way. I gotta remember. We're going this way. Okay, so you're over here.
This
All
way.
right. Right, this way. Okay, we're gonna have fun. So I got Mackenzie here. That is the best mod ever. Always taking care of business, checking my Twitch, checking my YouTube, making sure we're streaming everywhere. Thank you. Of course, you're on LinkedIn. Land of Ice and Snow. I know. All right, we got Dwellin here. Dwellin's going to be a guest soon coming up. from tuning in from Phoenix, Arizona. We're always Phoenix rising. I love that. What's up, Chris? Chris is here, another remote producer, total awesome friend. Glad to have you stopping by. I know you're busy. He's got a live coming up later tonight. What's up, Michael? Hi, thanks for tuning in and stopping by, always showing support. David, always a great show. Thank you. Thank you so much. Your support means the world to us, right? Especially when we're having these conversations, Elisabeth. Like, so important that people show interest and support these conversations as we really share how it's important and what makes how we can save lives. I guess really fundamentally for me it's about saving lives and bringing awareness and doing what we can. Medina, I hope I said that right. I love your name. Welcome. Hello, hello. Okay. Rosemary, always wonderful, always tuning in. I appreciate you, always fantastic. And I think that's it. All right. I see Michael. All right. I think we said hi to the chat. Welcome. Gave them a welcome. You welcome our guest. Let's get to it. Please tell me a little bit about you and your background and why this topic you were excited to join me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here. This topic is really near and dear to my heart, and it's actually the bulk of my work is working with people with disordered eating. And so, how I got here was I have been an applied neurology practitioner for I guess since about 2014 or 15, I had a couple movement studios in Austin, and I practiced applied neurology really for athletic performance and for pain management. And a lot of people have no idea what applied neurology is. So,
Right.
all applied neurology is really taking the latest in brain science and brain scan technology and breaking it down into really practical neural exercises that you can do to train your eyes, to train the balance system in your inner ear, your body mapping system, the system that tells your brain what's going on inside of your body. Train those parts of your nervous system to improve the overall health of your nervous system on like a second by second basis, so that every single second of the day your brain and your nervous system feel safer, and then they move you into less protective outputs. So it's really important to understand that our brain's primary job is our survival, and it's always in the background deciding safe and unsafe. And then it generates an output based on that decision, safe or unsafe. And if it feels unsafe because you don't have a clear map of where your body is, or because there's an issue with your eyes or the balance system in your inner ear, then it will generate a protective output. And that protective output could look like anything from pain to dizziness, to nausea, to muscle weakness, but it could also look like depression. It could look like a migraine. It could look like an episode of binge eating. Anything that your brain is going to use to get you to reduce the amount of stimulus coming in, to regulate your nervous system, and to get you to keep your world smaller and stay safe in that moment. So I used applied neurology for a long time for athletics and for pain. And then I went through a period in my own life where things really fell apart. And I was under a tremendous amount of stress myself. I lost my business. My romantic partner at the time was diagnosed with cancer, and I had a lot of my own unresolved childhood trauma that came flooding back. And my own disordered eating got really bad, episodes of binge eating and dissociation. And I started to see in myself all these signals that I recognized in my pain clients before experiencing pain, or in my athletes before their nervous system started to get protective. And I began to understand, man, there's much broader implications for functional neurology beyond just athletics, in terms of resolving trauma, in terms of healing the nervous system to move out of unwanted behaviors, in terms of making emotional processing and somatic processing possible. And I really began to develop a system working with different experts and somatic teachers and applying my own background to create a system that trains your nervous system to handle more stress, to be more resilient, and to not move into the same unwanted protective outputs, whether that's disordered eating or pain or migraine or chronic fatigue, whatever it is.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That is a lot. And I could see how most of us would be like, okay, right. So I really, I, it, Where do we start with that? Thank you so much for that. Where do we start with that, honestly? And how do we pick that apart to the basic person that doesn't have a neurological, or for me, I studied psychology, so some of that I can kind of understand and decipher, but really is how our body physically and our brain remembers and holds the sensations, what we're
Yeah,
feeling,
yeah.
right? And
Yes,
then how
yeah.
it affects us and how it's released in our daily lives, not just in one particular way as some of us may see. So, and that goes back to ways of coping, right? So I think that's something that I kind of heard in what you said, is that some of us find comfort from that pain, that trauma that we're storing, that we may not even know, we may not even remember, be aware of, and find comfort in some of the behaviors, right? So, like eating or not eating and being able to control that, and other behaviors, right? Whether it may include substance abuse, alcohol, um, behavioral, maybe like anger issues. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm not trying to assume, but I'm just trying to maybe ask from what I'm familiar with and the way people express themselves, right, when they're going through pain and when they're going through trauma and they don't know, right? They may have some mental health issues that are also making it more complex with what's going inside. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, so absolutely. I mean, what I do is I really take a very body-based approach to all of this. So
Mhm.
beyond just like it's comforting to me to eat food, I actually believe that all of our behaviors are our brain and our nervous system's best way to either get the stimulus that it needs to stay healthy and active and functioning well, or to regulate the system. So our nervous system is supposed to regulate between different states, right? We have a state that moves us into taking action, like fight and flight, and if that stress goes on for too long, maybe freeze. And then we
Okay,
have a
yeah.
part of our nervous system that calms us down, that makes us rest and digest, that brings us out of that heightened state of arousal. Well, when we get stuck in chronic stress, whether that's from unresolved trauma or a really stressful period of life, then we get stuck in that fight and flight response for too long, and it's dangerous. There's like a danger signal that goes off in our system because we're pumping out all these stress hormones, adrenaline and cortisol, and that can damage our blood vessels, it can damage our nerves, and our brain, our old brain, our survival brain, and our nervous system is smart. It has this intelligence, and it knows that too much stress for too long is dangerous. And so it will do something to regulate us, to get us out of that high stress state. One really great way to do that is to eat a bunch of food. It will actually stimulate important nerves like your vagus nerve and other things that make
Okay.
your body move into that calm and respond, rest and digest state. And so there
Oh,
came a
that
time
makes
in
sense.
my research where I really realized, like, man, my body and my nervous system found a way to protect me from this chronic stress that I was in ever since I was really little, from having childhood trauma and being stuck in that hypervigilant, heightened arousal state. My body turned to food as a way to regulate me. And in that way, it actually saved me from moving into more of a disease state and kept me a really functioning person. But if I wanted to move out of that behavior, I needed new tools to regulate my nervous system. I couldn't take that away and just expect myself to move on. Otherwise, it would present in other ways, like pain or migraine or chronic fatigue, because it's all just an output of your nervous system.
That sounds so familiar. I think that is something that we can all relate to in that sense. Whether we look for seeking, like sleeping too much or eating more than we should to, like you said, so our bodies can produce those chemicals, or working out too much.
Mhm.
Or so, and you said in your intro, you focus on fitness and movement and really have a lot of experience in working with athletes. And
I
so,
do. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I for a long time I worked with athletes, but I would say primarily now I work with trauma resolution and disordered eating.
Okay. All right. So yeah, so it's changed throughout like Your career. Okay, let's
Yeah.
go to the chat really quick. So I'm loving some of the comments. Juana says, so true about prolonged stress that causes physical problems. And I know a lot of us can really relate to that statement. And, just looking over what we see out there in the news and stuff. Super excited. I stumbled upon this LinkedIn Live. It's right on time. Hi, Anna. Well, welcome. Thank you. That is so kind of you to leave that and welcome. We love having conversations and please leave comments, ask questions. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what's being said. I'm here to learn. I am not the expert. I am just here to bring awareness. We are here to bring awareness and encourage acceptance to what we talk about, really help others. We want to break down those stigmas when it's related to these types of conversations, issues, things that we can share or relate to in some way. It may affect, not if not us, maybe someone we love, someone that we know. For sure, right? Let's see. Kenny, you always leave great comments. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna skip over some of this. Goodness, encouragement, empathy, understanding, sincerity, perseverance, knowledge, honesty. My goodness, courage, tenacity, awesomeness. We know you, Kenny. Thank you so much for your kind words. Okay, so Anna said she is in Washington, D.C., so that's fantastic. All right, Gary, hello. Thank you for hanging out. And Kenny did say how eloquently and articulated and eloquent. But if you've been on other shows and you've been on other lives, I'm sure you've met Kenny because Kenny likes to be around and make his way around and meet
Thank you,
guests and
Kenny.
be in the conversations. And Sherry, thank you. Greetings from Burrell Worldwide, Beverly Hills. So thank you for stopping by and supporting this conversation as well. David Wilson, I seen in there. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but that's it. Okay, just wanted to say hi. Jenny's here. Thank you, Jenny, for stopping by. We have a wonderful guest full of amazing knowledge. I'm trying to keep up with it myself. Because it's a lot and it's not like the most, you would say, easiest thing to talk about, right? Like sometimes we can't find the words, sometimes we don't know what to say. Sometimes we want to help, we want to assist other people that are going through things. So, how do we handle it and how do we have those conversations and how can we help them with behavior, I guess. I mean, we can go back to
Yeah.
behavior and
I
how we
mean, I
can
think a really important thing is to start to look at your behavior through the lens of curiosity if that's possible, right? And really to understand that you're not bad or morally wrong for having this issue. It's we all function the same way. We all have this operating system that is doing the best that it can to keep us alive in that moment. And so when we have deficits in our nervous system, when we have unprocessed emotions, when we're stuck in a state of chronic stress, our body and our old brain, our nervous system is always doing the best that it can to protect us and keep us alive. And so sometimes, in order for the behavior to change, we just have to start to take a step back and be like, what is my body asking for? What is the stimulus that my nervous system needs? What are the tools that I can use to give my body what it needs? And I saw Anna said something about it's so hard to get moving when you're overweight and you just feel lethargic, and chronic fatigue and that sense of like heaviness and exhaustion and chronic pain. These are all protective outputs of a nervous system that is dysregulated. And so while it's important to cognitively address these issues, the first place that I always go to with clients is how do we start to learn tools to regulate our nervous system so that it feels safe and start to make the body a safe container to come in and do this work in, to make it possible to drop into our bodies and see what signals it's sending us to do that safely, and then minimum effective dose of the work, right? So little by little, starting to give your nervous system the stimulus that it needs, whether that's through movement or just sensory stimulus or movements of your eyes or tongue movements. You can do these really simple, practical exercises to start to make your nervous system and your body feel safe. And then it becomes safe to look at the behavior, to process emotions, to deconstruct the beliefs that are underneath there. But the first thing we have to do is start to regulate the system and then come back to the body.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I like some of the comments, that it's definitely I've definitely turned to food when I was in a deep hole. So, yeah, our body wants to find relief from whatever we're experiencing emotionally or psychologically. So, that makes sense. Ah, Jenny wants to connect with you. Thank you, Jenny. You will
I'd love
definitely
to connect,
connect with
Jenny.
her. Yes. All right, everyone else is chatting. So let me go ahead and pull that comment down. So let's see, defective. Nervousness. We're doing the best we can. I'm trying to take notes on some of those keywords, really, to kind of make sure that I'm staying on track on the information and really how you're explaining how this affects us and really how we should be understanding applied neurology, right? And this brain based um, approach, right? To and how it really affects our day-to-day movement, our thoughts, our choices, maybe our
Yeah.
perspectives, the way we're thinking, if we're thinking clearly, if we're not thinking clearly.
Absolutely. I think what a lot of us just aren't taught is that we all have a very intelligent operating system inside of us, and that is our nervous system. And it really governs our felt sense of the world, whether we feel safe all the time, whether we feel able to be present and connected to other people, or whether we feel anxious, if our heart is racing, our palms are sweating. These are all like the felt sense of our life is experienced through our nervous system function. And there is no separation between our body and our brain and our nervous system. That's imagined. It doesn't exist. It all functions as one thing together. And so
I
you
have
can't just cognitively address these issues without bringing the body and the nervous system along for the healing.
Okay. I have a question and I'm trying to really like take in what you're saying. So I'm going to approach this from a disability perspective, asking questions of someone who may
Great.
have neurodiversity, right? That has perceptions,
Absolutely.
that takes in information, sensory information in different ways. We all have our sight is different for each one of us, our hearing is different, for each one of us. The way we sense temperature is often different. Your partner could be cold and you're warm, right? Or vice versa. You have sweats and so just these different things that, right? The way we hear a message, just the way one ad, any commercial, one can hear one thing and perceive it one way and we react, and our body will have some sort of reaction to it. Maybe it'll bring us to tears, maybe it'll make us laugh, maybe we'll freeze up, it'll trigger some trauma, some memory, some experience. So, and I'm trying not to overwhelm myself and get too lost in my thought. But I want to go again back to disability and what you were saying about movements and how we take those things in, and how we can be sensitive to how can we understand that other people do take and have different receptive responses. And not only is it oh god, here we go, we're going deep, right? Not only is it maybe like mental psychological, but it's sensory, where it's central nervous system, it's physiological, if I'm on the
Mhm.
right track. So then it's
Absolutely.
multiple things, right? We're talking multiple layers.
Yeah, it is definitely. And let's talk about that, that different people have different um
Sensory
stuff
inputs.
with their different inputs, right? So,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, our nervous system and our brain is always pulling in information from a bunch of different systems, information from our eyes,
Mhm.
information from the balance system in our inner ear, information from our joints that tell our brain where our body is in space, information from our skin, information from our vagus nerve that tells our brain what's going on inside of your body. And so your brain takes all of that information and it puts it together, and it generates this picture of where you are and the world around you, and then it generates an output, safe or unsafe, and what output should I do. All of these systems can be trained. So you can provide stimulus to the systems, even if you don't have the ability to see, you can still do movements of the eyes, or even if you can't hear, you can still do exercises for your vestibular system. And in fact, you might respond really well to that because maybe that system in that area of your brain is not getting enough stimulus. And so all of our different input systems are trainable, and everybody's nervous system is unique. Everybody
Mhm.
will respond differently to the stimulus, but there's always going to be ways to find stimulus that your body and your nervous system need and respond well to, so that you can create a daily practice of giving your nervous system the input that it needs, the stimulus that it needs to regulate itself, to function better, to be more resilient to stress, and to produce less protective outputs. And they're going to be different for everyone. So part of my job is to make everyone the expert of their own nervous system and teach people how to find the stimulus that helps their unique body and their unique nervous system feel safe and feel regulated.
Wow. That's so important. I know it is for people with disabilities, people that have experienced a lot of trauma, childhood trauma, young adult trauma, haven't really processed it, haven't had the supports around
Yeah.
or, given any tools or services. And so, and even if they have, my God, maybe they haven't been the right ones. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then that's just, you've said so many things tonight. You've talked about a few things that I'm going to go back to. I want to go back to this vagus nerve that you keep referring to because I feel like that's important and I want to know more about what that is. And it makes me think of intuition, or something that we talk about is, I guess, in advocacy spaces, you are your own advocate. You know your body best. I know this is something that a lot of people can relate to, that we
Mm,
teach others to. You have to listen, you have to pay attention, you have to be connected with yourself. Um,
amen.
so I know that we're gonna end up there at some point with this vagus nerve.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk
um,
about it a little. Do you want to?
yeah, please.
Okay. So I think you made a really awesome point just then, that everybody is the expert of their own body. Everybody's the expert of their own nervous system too. And so what I spend a lot of time doing is teaching people how to assess and reassess if something is working well for your unique nervous system. For example, if you have a lot of trauma and you're stuck in a state of hypervigilance, fight, flight, you need to keep moving all the time, it may actually be really threatening and dysregulating to you to try to sit still in meditation. And people are like, oh, sit, meditate, it will help you. However, if you really tune into your body as you're sitting in meditation, your heart starts racing, your palms start sweating, you may experience an emotional flashback. And in that
Right.
case, that's actually moving you in a negative direction. So you want to start to be able to read the signals that your body is giving you, so that when you explore all these different healing modalities, and there are so many and so many valid healing modalities, but it's important to assess and reassess, how is this really affecting my nervous system? What is my body saying to me about this? And one of the best ways to do that is to develop a skill called interoception, which, again, like, big word, but it just means the ability to read the signals that your body is sending you. And a lot of that skill comes from our vagus nerve. Cranial nerve 10 runs from your brainstem all the way down into your pelvis. And it's like this superhighway of information up to your brain that tells your brain what's going on inside of your body, what's going on with my organs, my heartbeat, my respiration. And your brain uses that information to make those predictions and decide how you're doing. Are you under threat? Are you safe? And it's also a big part of your rest and digest, calm and respond part of your nervous system. Well, our vagus nerve can get damaged over time with stress and trauma, and it can make the ability for our brain to understand those signals from our body difficult and threatening. And so a lot of the work that I do is training the vagus nerve, is vagus nerve exercises to help strengthen that nerve and to make it easier to actually start to read and interpret with accuracy the signals that our body is sending up to our brain,
And can you
so that you
connect that?
can be the
Oh,
expert.
Yeah, can you connect that with eating disorders a little bit? Just so we
Yeah,
can at least bring
absolutely.
awareness to that, and really how that is can be helpful, and something that someone that could consider as something that they want to explore and really pay attention to and say, wow, I didn't think of maybe approaching it this way or learning about this.
There is a ton of research that shows that vagus nerve dysfunction is linked very highly with complex PTSD, with
Mm,
eating disorders, with depression, because it's very threatening to our brain to not have a clear understanding of what's going on inside of our body. And if you work with people with eating disorders, and myself included, it was very scary for me to try to read the signals inside of my own body. I didn't feel safe in my own body yet. And so when someone told me to like close your eyes and drop from your head down into your body and what's it saying to you, that just made me dissociate right away.
oh
And
yeah.
so a lot of vagus nerve training started to create that sense of safety and the felt sense of well being as I was starting to read the signals that were coming into my body. And it reconnected me with my felt sense, with my body. And I began to be able to interpret the signals that my body was sending me with accuracy and not interpret too much threat where there wasn't really any, because I wasn't still stuck in
Right.
that state.
Mhm.
And I began to be able to, I could feel again, when am I hungry? When am I full? When do I need to go to the bathroom? Like these were things that someone who had been dissociated for a long time, I just didn't know how to feel those sensations. And it's really hard to move out of disordered eating and to try to practice something like intuitive eating or listening to your body or developing that kind of relationship with your body if you can't read the signals coming from inside of your own body. And so training my vagus nerve and working with it allowed me to begin to hear what my body was saying to me and to read those signals, and then to begin the very slow gradual practice of honoring what my body was asking for as it felt safe. But I couldn't do that until I was able to reconnect to my body through vagus nerve training.
Wow. Okay. So, yeah. Okay. It's like as we continue this conversation, it's starting to make a lot more sense the more we repeat it, and we're really like identifying these processes, and just how we do it, and we do it without thinking. I think that's almost like what makes it so hard, is that we do it without thought, and it's just a behavior. It's a response, like you said. It's just so becomes so natural that it's just like, "Wait, that I just always do that." So, it's hard to question,
Yeah,
it's hard to understand because it's just something you naturally do. So,
yeah,
thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, we're about 30 minutes in, and we're gonna chop here for a little bit in a second, but I do wanna bring one comment up. Anna, thank you again for hanging in there, and I saw Philip that made it to the conversation. Philip, hang on tight. Anna says, 100% agree. I had childhood trauma that locked me in an emotional age of 17. I had to go through therapy to learn how to parent that 17-year-old to align her with the adult that I have become. Definitely don't go it alone. So, yeah, this sounds like familiar, with so many of the things we experience. The more that we have these conversations, and it could be any different complex types of trauma. So, this
yeah.
gets repeated a lot in a lot of these conversations. So,
Yeah, and I totally agree, and with her advice to not go it alone. And
yeah,
this work is really, it works really well in conjunction with therapy, because as someone who also has a lot of childhood trauma, it did not feel safe for me in my body to process emotions. And I would actually have like bodily responses. I would get eczema, my joints would swell up, I would get a migraine. And so I
absolutely.
can use these tools, these nervous system training tools, to make my body feel safe before and after a therapy session, before and after emotional processing, before and after EFT tapping, or whatever it is that I'm doing to help myself resolve the trauma. before and after, I regulate my nervous system so that I'm starting to teach my body, hey, it's safe to do this. It's safe to process this emotion. It's safe to revisit this memory. It's safe to take this new action by doing just a couple simple neural exercises before and after. And now my body's on board with what I'm doing, and I don't have to experience those same protective outputs.
Yeah, you said so much because I know when you were talking about even having that hypervigilance and those behaviors and then trying to sit and meditate, it's like, your body is still responding in this other way, and you have to train it to say, okay, that response is an old response. You're not in that same
Yes.
environmental situation in that same um and I don't want to go off the beaten path and get off too far into the weeds, as they say, of conversations. But it's really insightful to talk about this and understand like all these different traumas and how they're really held within our body. And we have these responses that we try to stuff down, we try to ignore, we try to neglect. And I talk about this a lot. And something you already brought up about the self awareness piece, when it goes back to that, is that self-acceptance can be so difficult, right? It can be so difficult
Oh,
in
Lord, yes.
so many ways, and I know that that comes up just about every single week, and, having to look inward is often frightening and scary, and we don't it gets scary when you're like, "Wait, what? You want me to, like, actually, like, revisit that? What?" We're like, "No, I've been trying to avoid that. I'm trying to run from that. That's the one thing I'm trying to get away from." But you realize, I think, that your body holds on to that. So, I don't know how the brain remembers that back there, right? I mean, that's it. It's stored back there. I've heard terms like imprinting, right? I think we that
Hmm.
term from movies. I'm not gonna say the movie, but, there's a movie out there, and it kinda brings up that idea of the things that kinda just lock into our system, into our bodies, or into our responses from early, early childhood that we carry into young adulthood. They can become worse habits. They can become good habits that turn ugly, that have the ugly side.
Yeah, they're meant to be protective, but sometimes they end up harming us more, right? Or moving us in a direction that don't align with who we want to be now. And or we have so much emotion charged that's disproportionate to what's really going on because it's stored from the past. And it can be really frustrating when we're just trying cognitively to push through all of these things for so many years. So I got sober at an early age. I had a meditation practice. I tried all of the things and I could not stop binge eating. I couldn't stop overtraining. I just had a really abusive relationship with my body for a long time. And it was because every time I would try to work through these deeper things, I would experience really negative outputs because I wasn't working with the whole body and the system. So I couldn't ever get to the place where I could resolve the issues. I couldn't re-change the deep core beliefs and the deep core wounds because my body was just too protective. My subconscious mind was too protective. It didn't feel safe. And
Yeah.
so there was a lot of working through it at the level of the body and the nervous system so that I could eventually move out of those behaviors.
Wow. This conversation is just so critical, I think. And it's the times that we're living in, the stressors that we're under, the changes that are occurring, the loss, the grieving, just so much that we're trying to push through and get through, oftentimes faking it. So it's who knows what's going to actually like happen after now that I mean, I don't know. We don't know how long we're gonna be in what we're in. I personally don't think it's ever gonna go back to the way it was, and I
Agreed.
know that there's a lot ahead and a lot of damage that's been done and that's still being done that we're still working through, and that could be, personal things that goes on within the home, or it could be society's pressures and the things that happen outside in our neighborhoods, in our communities, in our government that also continue to put pressure on us, continue to stress us out, continue to live in a state of fear, heightened deprivation, all kinds of things, isolation. which so the cycle is terrifying when you think of it and when you kind
Yeah,
of
there's a lot of stress that we've all been under for the past couple of years, a state of chronic stress, because change, period, is threatening to the brain because it functions on pattern recognition to make those predictions to keep us alive. And there's been, whether or not you've responded well to this season of life with the pandemic and all of the social changes and everything that's going on, the financial stresses and the having to adapt, and it's still change, right? Like life has changed massively for most of us. And so that is, that's threatening, that's stress. And when we don't have the tools to process that stress through our body and to resolve the stress, of course people are experiencing more pain, of course people are drinking more and eating more to try to regulate themselves and engaging in all kinds of behaviors that are really
right.
just ways that they're trying to create safety and regulation in their body because we've been in a state of chronic stress for such a long time.
Yes. Okay. Woo. I feel like I want to just chat every time you say something. I want
Mhm.
to just say something right back, but I have got to go to our actual chat. Okay. So Anna, thank you again for supporting this conversation. I'm shaking my head in agreement with everything you're saying. So spot
Right
on.
on, Anna.
Yes. Mark, thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Eating disorders are more common than folks think. So let's
Hmm.
take a moment to talk about that. Let's bring awareness to that. A lot of the topics we talk about here tend to be taboo, controversial. We don't talk about that here on LinkedIn, or we don't talk about that here on this platform. Or that's not happening in my home, or I don't know anybody that good old phrase. I don't know anybody. But you don't know that, and that is just to me um absolutely wrong to just make those say that kind of uninformed comments. So what are your thoughts on that? More common than you think.
Oh, yeah, eating disorders are so common. And, it doesn't have to be under eating. It can also be binge eating. It can be, periods of overtraining, like eating a bunch and then overtraining, causing a lot of harm to the body in that way.
Working out, right?
Yeah, obsessive
Physical.
working out. Yeah, obsessive working out or
Mhm.
overdoing it past your body's signals of pain. It can take so many different forms, and really what it boils down to is our relationship with our body, our ability to be present in our body, and our ability to not be abusive to our body, right? And so
That's
many of us,
good.
just when you think of that, like, do I have a loving relationship with my body, or am I somewhat an abusive person to my own body? And I think we live in a society that is pretty abusive to people in different sized bodies, and where that creates a felt sense of not being safe inside of your own body if you don't
God, yes.
conform to the norm, and that actually creates trauma for people. And so there's so much to this issue, and there's so many people that struggle with being embodied because of the relationship that they have with their body, because of the way our society treats food and diet and different size bodies.
We have to have a whole episode on just that. The whole body shaming and all that, right? And
Amen.
even
Yes.
yeah, like that's a whole nother episode right there. I didn't even think to have, but now we know we gotta have that. You get a round two. You talked about something that just struck. Oh my gosh. And we'll have to go back to it because I see some stuff in the chat, but that was really, really good. And that's definitely super important. And earlier, Mark had said, must get your powerful guest as a guest on our network. Mark, please connect with her, reach out to her, send her a direct message on LinkedIn. Everybody connect with her, follow her. I mean, Elisabeth is amazing. As you can see, as you're hearing and seeing. Let's see what else. Jenny Gold, I have been in odd stress for me for 2 years now. The past has definitely affected my health. Jenny has a podcast, not a podcast, and she has a show. She talks about invisible disabilities, um, and stuff like that. Lyme disease. So I know she talks about her story and her experience, and some others. So, you know, definitely share your message on hers. James is here. Hi, James. Thanks for popping in and catching some of this conversation and sharing with us. And feel free to share your experience with eating disorders. I mean, I would love to know. people's experiences with it. I mean, we're not here to shame it. We're here to bring awareness to it. We're here to provide support and, provide community. I didn't know if Le- Leah was here, but I didn't see her. But okay, I hope she's here. And let's see. Oh, Mackenzie, what did you say? I spent some years being incredibly underweight. I would binge eat, then not eat, then avoid sleep until I couldn't stand. So the things we do. Oh, and you talked about self harm or harming the way we harm ourselves. We last week
Hmm.
we talked about self love. So that kind of run because you were talking about we have to love ourselves and we have to love our own bodies and really like so, and I
Yeah,
talk about skin and loving our skin and taking care of our skin, which is, really taking care of our bodies. And, I love my
yeah.
physical fitness. So,
Yeah, all kinds of self-care practices, but it's so important to make sure that those self-care practices aren't coming from that mindset of like I have to do this to fix myself, to be better, to you know what I mean? Like in this way that we
yeah.
can get obsessed with that in a way where we're thinking that we're broken and we're not. We're just it's just the way our system works. It's the way our operating system works, and we just have to understand it better and find new tools to work with it. And there's nothing broken about us for any of these things. It's just a matter of learning how to read the signals that your body is sending you and give it what it's asking for in a new way so that you don't have to move into the behaviors that are painful and harming you. But that's easier said than done. And
Yeah.
so if you're struggling with it, just be patient with yourself and know that there's a lot of resources that address both the body and the brain that make behavior change more possible.
And that makes me want to ask how can we start to become more aware to when our body reacts somatically? To have those somatic symptoms that you mentioned earlier in the beginning.
Yeah, so some of the most simple things to look for are if your mouth dries up, you're starting to move into more of a threat response. If your shoulders start to creep up, that's a sign of startle reflex. If your heart rate increases, if your palms get sweaty, if you get more tension in your muscles. So if you're doing anything and you start to feel those subtle signals, if you feel a little bit of pain, and like maybe at the site of an old injury or someplace where you tend to experience pain. These are all signals that your body is sending you that something happening is threatening to it. Maybe there's too much stimulus. Maybe you're working out too hard. Maybe you are having a conversation that it's not quite ready and prepared for. And so, if I can start to recognize those earlier, softer signals of my body and start to do something to regulate it, give it some stimulus that it likes, maybe even just like rubbing my hands together or taking a gentle inhale through my nose and a long, slow,
So
relaxed exhale out through my mouth. Go ahead.
so if we have a stimulus, if we have that reaction, we're naturally going to do something to soothe ourselves, right?
That's right. But if I can choose what I'm going to do to soothe myself, rather than moving into another behavior that I don't
Right.
want to engage in, then I can start to interrupt that loop, right?
So that's where
And
you want to catch it.
that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. So if you can start, our bodies speak quietly at first and then it gets louder, right? So if I feel a
Mhm.
little bit of pain, but I keep pushing through it, if I feel a little bit of sweaty palms and dry throat, but I keep pushing through it, then eventually my body's going to say, no, too much stress. It's going to move me into extreme pain or migraine or a binge eating episode or whatever it is that it's going to use to keep me safe and to reduce the amount of threat. But if I can hear those subtle signals and I can stop at that moment and do something simple to regulate my nervous system and to make my body relax and feel safe again, then and maybe it's just take a quick walk outside. Maybe it's, um, do some movements of my eyes that my nervous system responds well to, or some tongue movements that my nervous system responds well to. It doesn't need to take long, doesn't need to be super complex,
I've
but
seen
I can
some of those
regulate
things that
myself.
people like tap their what is it, tapping
The
things?
EFT tapping. Yeah,
I've seen some
EFT tapping.
tapping. I don't know where body parts, maybe the wrist or the hand or something, or was it?
Yeah, you could tap for sensory stimulus or you could tap for EFT tapping is actually tapping different acupressure points that helps calm the nervous system and let emotions move through the body. Bare feet on the ground absolutely is one. Take
Okay,
your shoes off, put your feet in the ground.
I was curious see if I was along the right lines of what
Mhm.
they talked about
Absolutely.
those. It's to really like, not let yourself go down that wrong behavioral response and to kind of put you back in the
Mhm.
moment, in the physical moment, and tell your body that you're safe and you're here. Is that
Yep, that's right.
I'm learning, folks. This is just me learning, being taught by our wonderful,
You're a fast
wonderful.
learner. You're doing
Yes.
great.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, let me see. I don't wanna go okay, I got Jenny's comment. Let's see. Jenny, are you gonna post yeah, I will post her LinkedIn profile. We sure will. It's around here somewhere. I know it is. Okay, and I'm gonna pull up Anna's comment because Anna's been such a great
Yeah.
uh giving information and contributing to the conversation. So I was talking to a nutritionist for almost a year while losing nothing. She told me I need to get therapy with a mental health provider. Until I learned to love myself, I wouldn't have been able to lose the weight. So it's been a journey.
Yeah, yeah,
All these
absolutely.
outside things.
Yeah, and I think it's like we know we don't need more information, right? About like what to eat or when to eat. Like, gosh, there's so much already, you know? And what we really need is tools to make it possible to eat in the way that we want to, in a way that honors our body, in a way that we can eat intuitively and on our intuition and eat foods that make us feel good. But that's not possible when we're being driven into these behaviors by nervous system dysregulation. So the first thing we need to do is be able to regulate our nervous system and make our body feel safe. And then, absolutely, starting to uncover some of the emotions that are going on underneath the emotional eating and the stress eating, and getting to a place where we love ourselves, but being patient with ourselves while we get there. And gradually letting our nervous system feel safe with even self-love.
I don't want this conversation in. I'm starting to look at the clock and freak out. I feel like we haven't even talked about your wellness, I mean, your brain-based wellness and your service and what you do and how you I mean, you've talked about what you do and how you help people. Talk about your website and your services just for a minute. I'm gonna get your LinkedIn profile. I will drop it in the chat. Anthony, thanks for stopping by and making it, my friend. I can't wait to have you on the show. Elisabeth, connect with Anthony.
Yeah,
He's got a
I
podcast if you haven't
will.
been on
I
his.
will.
My
Absolutely, I'd love to.
so he's fantastic. And thank you for sharing some of those like things that we all like go through, right? Like those signs, the dry throat, the mouth, the nose, a frog in the throat when you can't talk.
Yeah,
Um,
those are
just
great signals.
yeah. For the
Yeah.
cue, I guess, cueing your body's being triggered in some form. Oh, I know what I wanted to say real quick. Is no, I don't.
Well, I'll tell you guys, you can find me on my website, which is brainbased-wellness.com. And
I
what we do on the site is we train the nervous system live every day to resolve your deficits and just give you a bunch of tools that you can use to train all the different systems in your nervous system. And I teach you how to know if that's working well for you or not. And then I have a food freedom program where we do specifically regulating the nervous system around food behaviors. And then it's really a three-pronged approach: create safety in the body and learn to regulate the nervous system, learn how to physically process emotions through the body and make it safe to process emotions through our body. And then we take a deep dive into the subconscious beliefs and core beliefs that are driving our behavior and keeping us, caught up in the same patterns, the same loops. But before that, we create safety, we process emotions, we rewire the subconscious mind. And that's that program.
Okay. So I kind of remembered what I was going to say was most people start with your feelings. Like go back to the memory so you can change the feelings is what I've heard a lot. Some people educate on that, right? Go back to your childhood memory. What was that feeling? Have that conversation with that small child to give them love. Shower them with all those things that you crave as a child that you need to fulfill that emotional void, but I
Yes.
don't really
Yeah.
hear this other part that you're so this is actually one step deeper. To me, this is what it sounds like. It's that
I think all that stuff is super important. we just have to be safe enough to go back there in our body. So first it's
Yeah.
about creating that safety and tools for regulation so that you can go back to your inner child
Right.
without feeling terrible afterwards, without getting
Terrified.
a headache, yet terrified, jaw clenching, headaches, pain, or like I would do that work and then I would find myself binging because I was so dysregulated. My body was just creating a way for me to feel safe again and to get the stimulus that I needed to regulate. But I stopped wanting to do it because every single time afterwards, I would have a migraine, I would be shut down with chronic pain, and I would binge. So then I don't want to keep doing the work of going back to heal my inner child because the cost is too high, right? So if I can learn the tools to create that safety in my body to re-regulate myself after so that I don't have to experience those unwanted outputs, then I can go back and be with my inner child. Then I can, and the more I can create that safety, the deeper back I can go. But before I could create that safety, my mind wouldn't even let me get there. And then if I started to,
Yeah.
man, it would shut me down.
That's what I'm thinking because it's, often that's what I hear. It's like, "Oh, well, take yourself to that place and start with that emotional." But I know that the physical responses sometimes just paralyze you or
That's
deceive
right.
you.
Yeah, and it can
Um,
be really
or
re-traumatizing if we don't have the tools to move that stuff through the body and to re-regulate
yeah.
the nervous system. Then we're just recreating that trauma over and over again, and I'm not sure. I think that can be harmful sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it could be definitely be harmful if your body's not prepared
Yeah,
for that.
yeah.
It's gonna respond the same or similar or and then to compound any trauma that's happened since then, let's not even add that.
Totally. Yeah,
The traumas
totally.
that happen in adulthood, the traumas that
Yeah.
happen, right, that we go through that.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, okay. Have I left any questions out? I don't know. I feel like I've made you repeat yourself like 10 times.
No, no, I could talk about this forever. So,
Wow.
yeah.
I would love to talk about it again and some more, but you've got some hopefully some individuals you can connect with from tonight. Brain-based wellness is your website. So go there, connect with you, check out her services, check out her programs. Um so why should people reach out to you? What do people need to be seeking or wanting that you can really help them with one more time?
Change, a better way to
Change.
change. And so I think if you're just frustrated and you feel like you're being held back by your body or by these outputs that you don't want, and you want to create this change in your life, whether that's grow your business or move out of disordered eating or
Yeah.
change your codependent patterns and set boundaries, but you just feel like you're being held back by something beyond your control, see if training your nervous system helps you, and so that change becomes possible.
Let's go to her website. Go to her website. Check it out. Okay. Fantastic. Lot of information. Very important. Needs to be known that we all share so much traumas alike, whether it's eating disorders related or other types of traumas or issues that we're carrying and holding on to, and whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And oftentimes it's more subconscious than not, huh?
Yeah, it sure is.
The conscious just kinda does that external, that ego protecting, right? And I think
Hmm.
that that's what you referred to earlier. And
Yeah,
that's what we're
totally.
familiar with. That's what and that's what other people see from the outside, your family, your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers. So they see all the
Yeah.
external. Yeah. Ooh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Please,
Thank you so
friends,
much.
connect with her. She's amazing, as just knows her stuff. I've got so much to learn, but I'm really fascinated by this when it comes to like that neurology and the brains. I mean, psychology is one thing, and that's very different, and psychiatry is a whole nother thing. But really, just understanding it from what's going on like physically and in this nervous system and those sensors and what really your body is taking in and perceiving and creating, and how it's translating all that information.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you. All right, friends. Thank you. Thank you. I hope everyone had their questions. Thank you for the comments. We really appreciate. Please connect with her. And I guess we're going to go ahead and say goodnight. I'm going to pull up my little 60-second countdown and we're going to say goodnight. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being here.